So, can deep states of samadhi be very helpful spiritually? Absolutely. Basically, samadhi is a way of saying to be absorbed. So when you've been absorbed in something, could be anything where you just completely lose track of time. And you look at the clock and you're surprised usually, like, oh my goodness, 3 hours went by. It felt like a half an hour. You could be doing anything, just something that you were really involved in. So involved you lose track of time, you lose track of yourself. When that happens, no matter what the context, that's a kind of samadhi. That's not the deepest samadhi, but it's a kind of samadhi because samadhis are just ever deepening states of absorption. To be completely, absolutely involved, to the state of being just completely absorbed in what you're done. And so when you get into, say, the deepest state of samadhi, what they often call nirvikalpa samadhi, then you're so absorbed that the world just disappears. You don't have any experience of there being a world. You probably don't even have any experience of there being a body. You can be so absorbed into the ground of being that there's just the ground of being, but the ground of being isn't the thing. It's not something, right? So it's not a particular thing to be. It's not a particular thing to experience. But it's, at the same time, it's kind of unmistakable when we really sink down into that deepest ground. And so those states of samadhi or absorption, yeah, they're very helpful. I wouldn't say they're absolute requirements. I've seen some people have some pretty extraordinary awakenings, without meditative absorption beforehand, certainly. So again, we don't want to say, like, make these super strict causal relationships, between states of samadhi and states of spiritual insight. And yet we also don't want to just throw it out and say there's no relationship at all, because there is. Now, of course, you're not going to go around walking around, functioning, doing your job, raising your kids, whatever, if you're in some really deep state of nirvikalpa samadhi where you have no sense of the world and no sense of your body. It's not a very functional state. It's an amazing state. It is a kind of state where often revelation can come out of that, but it's not like you're gonna walk around, do your job in nirvikalpa samadhi. Like, that's a temporary state that you can go into, sort of this ground state, go into the fundamental ground so deeply, so completely, that everything else just disappears. Now, someone could hear that and so, okay, well, I guess that's what needs to happen. So I'm going to try to make that happen in meditation. No. First of all, if you try to make that happen, it will not happen, right? Oh, just try to make yourself disappear. It's a good way of keeping yourself in the center. So from that perspective, it's not a great thing to just get too obsessed with. And also, I'm not saying it's totally an absolute causal link. But what happens when we go into these really deep states of absorption, or what can happen? It can almost be like of course, when we really get pulled, and we can only almost be pulled down into these deepest states. We can't put ourselves there, really. There's a way in which something just sort of pulls us, maybe too strong, but often it can feel like that. You're being sort of pulled into this very deep and profound. But it's at the very foundational level, the ground. It transcends not only the seer and the seen, but also experience. There's no experience there. But being plunged into some of these deep states of absorption, just almost like, and then we do sort of, at some point, we'll come out of that, because, of course, we can't function or really do anything in that kind of state. Um, and it can be kind of like, it's like rebooting a computer, you know? When you go into, maybe when we go into these deep states of samadhi, it's like, it's like a, what would they call that? When you, like a hard crash, or you turn your computer off and then you turn it back on and it reboots. It's like when we come out of those states, we'll have a rebooted vision, a rebooted perspective on things. And so even though you're not walking around in nirvikalpa samadhi all day, it deep dips into it. Do transform the mind. Do transform perception in a way. And so that's why they're linked with meditation. And of course, this is one of the reasons we do meditation, not necessarily to pursue a state of absorption, right? Because if you pursue it, it's not going to happen. So it's not about pursuing these states of absorption, but it is about that silent inquiry. The inquiry isn't really about the search for the perfect answer. That's not why we're doing inquiry in its spiritual sense. Inquiry kind of directs consciousness. And it can direct it in a very precise way if we know how to work with it.